Hi, my name is Soda, and you're listening to Heart to Heartland, a fan podcast from a fan perspective. Welcome back to Heart to Heartland. Looks like you had a lot to say about episode 9, which we will be reviewing today. So if you haven't seen episode 9, don't listen until you have, because you will get spoiled. This episode aired last Sunday on CBC Gem, so it's airing tomorrow on CBC TV. And in order to keep this tight, let's get started. Maddie said, amazing episode. I thought it would be one of those episodes where it's kind of like, yes, it's predictable, kind of like the previous episode with Lindy going missing at the fair. However, it was somewhat nice of a change to see what happened. I just can't believe the season finale is next week. It feels like it just came back. Hopefully, Lou will stop meddling into things that isn't her business because she's seen the damage it's caused her sister. Hopefully, things will officially be resolved next episode, unless Heartland wants to put us through another loophole and leave us on a cliffhanger like they did in season 6. I would also like to point this out towards my comment. I feel the writers would never write Lou out. In the season 18 trailer, we saw towards the end Amy in a dress, smiling probably while looking out over the horizon. We know the season finale is a happy ending because it's the barn open house thing, if we would like to call it that. I firmly believe that the writers of Heartland are just adding this cliffhanger, if we can call it that, to keep us on the edge of our seats, since we really didn't get a cliffhanger this season at all. But I believe that Lou will be alright. I hate to say this, but it's my own opinion, but I feel like the writers are just trying to find something to do with these characters, especially since it's been going for 18 seasons. Lou's accident, if that's what we want to call it, seemed really over drama written, and don't get me wrong, I know the show is all about drama and family. However, I feel like this episode with Lou was just what I would like to call an extra piece of something to create a cliffhanger since we didn't get one really this season. I know Lou will be fine. I mean, when it comes to Heartland, it's sometimes frustrating because typically we know everything's going to be okay in the end. But that's also kind of the comforting thing as well, and why the show can be such a comfort thing for so many. But yeah, not to spoil anything, but it seems like Lou will be okay because we've seen the trailer for the season and we've seen her smiling in the finale with Peter and all that. So we know she's going to be okay. But I hope this isn't just for the sake of drama. I hope that something will come out of this because otherwise it's kind of like, what's the point? I want to believe that something will come out of this, but at the same time, I have to say that the show doesn't have the best track record when it comes to satisfying problem resolvement, if that's even a word. And it can be very frustrating because I know they can kind of build things up, but typically the way they resolve things or actually don't resolve things, it has become kind of repetitive and old. So while I did enjoy this episode, I also don't expect much from the finale, I have to say. But yeah, let's not go there yet. Then Heartland Lisa BFC said, 18 seasons in, and we finally hear that Tim actually had a mother. No other family mentions, so perhaps that will take another 18 years. Then No Context Heartland commented, season 36, we get an offhand mention of his dad, to which Lisa replied, and 18 years after that, his long-lost brother turns up at his funeral. And he is greeted by Jack, who is still invincible at 146. I mean, yes. But I was really surprised that we got to hear about Tim's mother, but I also kind of feel like it was kind of a plot tool to help him bond with Nathan. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen to people. I mean, obviously it does, but it just like when it's been 18 seasons, they kind of feel like, okay, since we haven't really established Tim's background, we can do anything with it. And yeah, sure, you can, but at the same time, it's kind of like it cheapens it a little bit, in my opinion, because why now? And the answer is because you need it for the plot. I did appreciate that, but I also feel like because it's probably gonna be all we get to ever know about Tim's background, it's kind of cheap. I mean, we've been asking for it, so I guess we should be happy about it. But I just hope that we would get to know more and it wouldn't feel a little bit undeserved almost after all this time. The no context Heartland said, naturally, Lou's storyline stressed me out. Her accident is way more intense than I thought it would be, and I can't believe they ended the episode without her being okay. It makes sense that this will cause her and Amy to work through their problems and also will help with her and Katie's struggles recently. I love getting to see Lisa, Jessica, and Katie working as a group this episode, and them having a positive influence on Katie not feeling like she belongs at Heartland. Her mom has been so staunchly belonging at Heartland since before Katie was born, so it's important for her to have those role models. And I always love getting to see Katie and Lisa interact since Lisa's been so important to her since she was little. I also like the touch of her getting hurt and pretending it was nothing at first. It's very Jack, like Lisa said, but I actually thought at first that it was very Lou of her. I was worried about Caleb being back and the writers trying to set up the love triangle mess again, but it really seems like the purpose he served there was to give Amy somebody to tell the truth about how she felt post and not really break up with Nathan. I thought it was sweet how he was telling her that she's worth fighting for. The fishing trip was nice, but felt not nearly as important as everything else happening. It kept the story arc of the season, the Beef Wars resolution, going, and I did like getting a tiny bit of detail on Tim's family for the first time in literally forever, but other than that, I was much more interested in other plots. I was really looking forward to the scenes with Lisa, Jessica, and Katie, and I feel like it was better than I thought. I mean, obviously, it was just really nice to see them work together and sort of give us this fan service in a way, because it doesn't really necessarily drag the plot along, but at the same time, it's just nice to see them doing something that they don't always do. And I feel like they were really beneficial for Katie to understand that she can be many things, because it's so true. They do so many things and they don't have to feel like they can't do something or they have to just be one thing. And I feel like getting Lisa and Jessica back and Katie having that opportunity to hear their perspective of something sort of similar they've been through was really important, because even though Katie and Lou clearly love each other, sometimes when you have a close relationship like that, like mother and daughter or just parent and child, it's natural to kind of push the parent away when they're trying to help you, because you have so many emotions and you can't really deal with them and you feel that need for independence. So I feel like even though Lou would have said the same thing, Katie probably wouldn't have listened to her, because she has that defense when it comes to Lou, especially with everything that they've been through this season. So coming from someone like Lisa and Jessica, I think she was more open to listening. And not only that, she really understood what they meant, because she has seen them do all these things that they listed and talked about, and she can kind of try to reflect that back to herself without having that teenager who's annoyed with their parent thing hovering over their head. Because typically teenagers don't want to be like their parents, because even though Lou is sort of similar to Lisa and Jessica as well, because she's done many different things, at the moment she's not able to reach Katie similarly than Lisa and Jessica were able to. Then Chris Tim Heartland said, I love this episode. Love the three ladies on horseback rounding up cows, the great advice, encouraging words to Katie, who doesn't quite know she has wings yet, and she thinks she only has one direction to fly. Katie needed to hear and see those strong, independent women who can do it all and still be part of a ranching family. It's a great lesson for Katie. Love the boys' fishing trip. I was kind of hoping Tim would give Nathan a hard time, classic Tim way, but I was pleasantly surprised he was empathetic and understanding with him. And OMG, after 18 seasons, we finally learned that Tim had a mother. He's not the devil, he's human with falls and all. It must have been difficult for him seeing his mother not recognizing him towards the end of her life. Alzheimer's, dementia is cruel. Loved all the little pokes Tim and Jack threw at each other. Loved Tim's quick wit. Priceless. Can't Jack for once admit that he wants to run the business with Tim and not some hired help? That he cares for him and he would miss him? Really? The Lou storyline was so well executed. Michelle did a fantastic job. All the tension and emotion running through me till they found her. It was great. I don't think it was overly traumatic. It was just the right amount of trauma, and leaving us with a cliffhanger is the best thing they could have done. The only thing that bothered me was that no one was apologizing to Nathan for giving him a hard time for 18 episodes for him losing his biggest client. And how will they convince Crown and Garland to take them both on? How does this work really? Oh, I know, movie magic. The Amy and Caleb storyline did not interest me at all, to be honest. Nathan not fighting for Amy? Does Amy live in a fairy tale? It was Nathan who made all the first moves. The impromptu picnics, dinner dates, asking Amy to come with him at the sheep herding thing, bonding with Lindy, all the trail rides. What did Amy do to fight for him? For their relationship? Nothing really. Didn't even stand up for him to her family. Anyway, I'm hoping Amy will get past her self-pity. I'm not worth fighting for, and will resolve this misunderstanding with Nathan. They belong together. I feel like the weakest part of this episode for me was the fishing trip. I had high expectations for that one because so far I've sensed more mature direction for the men in the show this season. So I was hoping that they would be able to repair all the damage they've done. I understand that once upon a time, like last season, and I know this is the same year supposedly, it was all about the little guys against the big corporations and all that. But I feel like that is kind of the minor issue here. I feel like the bigger issue is the damage Heartland has done to Price Beef on a personal level. And I didn't think that this episode really dealt with that at all. I mean, it was nice that Jack and Tim were able to bond with Nathan and that he felt like he needed to get away from the situation at home for a little bit. But I just don't think that was enough. I mean, it could still be the beginning, but I gotta say, like I said earlier, I don't really think the writers are ever really able to handle situations like this in a way that would leave me satisfied. Like, okay, I think they did a good job, and I think everything was taken care of, and every character was being heard and respected and all that. So I don't know. And I also got to say that when Tim brought up the dementia thing, I don't know if it's just me because I'm really protective of people's secrets. And I know that Amy told Lou and Lisa the truth about Nathan's dad, believing that they would keep the secret. But ever since after that, with Lou's slip, and then when Jack finds Lou and Amy fighting in the kitchen early in the morning, I felt like Nathan's secret has just been this like thing that they throw around carelessly. Like when Amy said to Jack, Nathan Sr. has Alzheimer's. I know they needed to move the plot along, but part of me was like, Amy, what are you doing? It was one thing to tell Lou and Lisa sort of caught in the moment, but now you're just like spreading this all around, and now Tim knows, and it's just like, I don't know. I just felt really protective of the secret that Nathan shared with Amy and how it has now become this public knowledge. I know it was part of the reason why the prize beef was dropped, but at the same time, I still feel that it shouldn't mean that everyone just gets to know. Then Dip said, Grandpa and Amy are on the outs. Grandpa gets injured. Cliffhanger. Lou and Amy are on the outs. Lou gets injured. Cliffhanger. Conflict resolution, Heartland style. Nothing puts forgiveness on the fast track quicker than the fear of losing somebody completely. It does not bother me that they repeated the same formula because the scenes between Lou and Amy really moved me, and I thought that Michelle's depiction of Lou's ordeal was so well done. I'm not sure if Jack's solution to the B-Force would work in real life, but it should work for Heartland and clears the way for Nathan and Amy if that is the direction in which they are actually going. I say that because Caleb is really shining this season. In my opinion, the writers are giving his character a caterpillar to butterfly metamorphosis. I enjoyed the Lisa, Jessica, and Katie interaction. Katie is portrayed as observant, so I do not understand how she does not realize that Amy is the only cowgirl on the ranch. Gotta agree with you there. I mean, it is sort of the easiest solution for any type of conflict. I do agree with you as well about the Lou injury scenes being really well done. I really enjoyed that. I mean, I've been saying for years that Lou needs her own accident episode, and they did that really well with this one. And I fully expected it to be kind of a small thing, like few scenes, and then they would come back from the hospital and everything would just kind of be back to normal. But I was really surprised when I saw that it was kind of the whole episode that they did with her and having to deal with that injury. And I was even more surprised when they left us at that cliffhanger. Michelle did great job with everything that she was given. And I do also feel like in this episode, I fully embrace seeing Lou hurt. I know that sounds a little bit weird, and seeing those scenes with Amy and all that. But I feel like what's gonna either break it or make it is the next episode, which I feel like might not make this seem such a good idea, because if it doesn't really help solve everything, or at least most things, then it's kind of like this was all for nothing. But within this episode, I really enjoyed that. I do think that we should have maybe seen in episode 8 when Lindy went missing and Nathan found her and he called to Lou, because before that scene, we've seen all this build up for Lou's frustrations with Nathan. And I feel like even though Lou kind of picking Lindy up when she's with Nathan doesn't necessarily add to the plot per se, it would have definitely helped with Lou's arc this season, because I feel like most of the issues with Heartland Beef and Price Beef aren't with Nathan, Jack, and Tim, but more with Nathan and Lou. And so I don't know how they're able to really resolve everything in one episode. So they could have started building that up in episode 8 already, kind of humbling Lou a little bit. And then after this accident, she is even more humbled. And then she's able to reflect more how she's been behaving towards Nathan, and then maybe makes a little bit peace with him as well. So there's a lot of pressure for this finale. I don't really know if they're able to do it, but we'll see. I've been also kind of expecting to see some kind of bonding moment between Lou and Stetson. I was hoping maybe they could do a join up scene to help them really establish their relationship, but apparently they're really sound, as we saw in this episode, which I do love, but I always appreciate seeing more connective moments between these characters and their horses. So, do I feel a little bit cheated on? Maybe, but I also really liked seeing Lou lean on Stetson and Stetson being really loyal to her and not wanting to leave her side, but then sort of going to get help. But I feel like we need more episodes. A lot of these problems would be solved with more episodes because now we just have to kind of rush through all of the motions and we don't really get that satisfaction of just kind of staying in moments and really appreciating them for what they are. Also, does Lou know that Tim has a job in Dallas? I feel like she doesn't, but I would think that she would be interested in that. And if Tim decides to do this the way he's visioning it, then that means not only Jack has to do the job, but Lou has to commit even more. So I think Tim should let Lou know as well, especially because they are all partners, so they should be in the known about these things, not to mention their family. Also, I assumed that Lou was going to Vancouver for Peter. It also seemed like Lou was pretty much gone for the whole day. She definitely missed her flight because it was getting dark already. So is Peter not worried? Would Peter not call Katie? I don't know, but which is something that I was thinking. Then Dom Burrell said, I liked it and Michelle did a great job, and surprise, surprise, Lou and Amy will now be BFFs again. Lou will hopefully let go of her ego and recognize Amy's vulnerability where Nathan is concerned and do something about it. I'm so frustrated with how the writers have drawn out the Nathan Amy storyline. I just want to see them together, given attracted and suited they are to each other. My hunch is that Caleb, after noticing how low on confidence Amy is, will tell Nathan to scoop her up and just kiss the poor girl. On a side note, do they not have a first aid box in the house? That scene of Katie getting a plaster from a random drawer in Lou's room to segue her into noticing her luggage was pathetic, one of the worst I have seen. This season has been very hallmarky. In fact, it's pretty much been the case since season 15. And where have Lisa and Jessica been all season? They are great characters and bring a good energy to the storylines. I'll never understand how Logan was included in this season, as his character brought nothing other than ridiculous horror stories. Jessica and Lisa are pretty much excluded. I was wondering the same thing about the plaster or band-aid or whatever you call it. I was like, why does Lou have this in her room? Because I would imagine they would have that sort of thing in more common areas, like bathroom, maybe the kitchen. I don't know. But yeah, I understand it is because the plot needs to move along a little bit, but it was still so random. And I feel really sad that we basically only got few episodes with Jessica and Lisa this season. I would imagine that having them around would be more expensive than having True Davies around. And that's not shade, but just, they are actors with different backgrounds. And so I feel like that is kind of the reason why we see so little of them, because I know that Jessica Steen has said that she would love to be on more, but it is what it is. Then HL Horses said, this was a decent episode, more interesting than last week's, but not my favorite. It was really nice to see Lisa and Jessica back. I really like their storyline with Katie. Lisa was out of the kitchen and doing ranch stuff, which I love to see. I love how Lisa and Jessica just kind of took charge and said they could help round up the cows. Love seeing them both rope that steer too. I enjoy when they show these fancy businesswomen can also be cowgirls. It also feels like it's been forever since we've seen Flash. I also really enjoyed seeing a one-on-one conversation with Lisa and Jessica because I feel like we've never had that before, but I could be wrong. I also really like their conversation with Katie and encouraging her that she can accomplish whatever she wants to, no matter where she comes from, and that they like to travel and have a different lifestyle but can still come back and be cowgirls. The Jack and Lisa opening scene was also a nice touch. Loved Lisa's comment about Katie being like Jack. I just wondered that if Katie had gloves, why wasn't she wearing them to mess with the barbed wire? That would be the first thing I would do. I also really like the fishing trip. Feels like something they would have done with one of the girls' significant others. And oh my gosh, we actually got family information about Tim. Took them long enough. I really enjoyed Nathan being vulnerable and able to bond with Tim over that. They all seem to get along very well and solve the beef tension, which makes me hopeful for Amy. Even though Nathan never said directly why what Amy wanted for the relationship wasn't for him, I always assumed it was because he didn't feel like he could get along with Jack and Tim with the beef tension and just in general. I hope this fishing trip showed Nathan he can actually get along very well with Tim and Jack, and now that the beef thing is solved, hopefully Amy can get back on track. I also loved Tim and Jack's conversation in the truck at the end. We don't see those two being vulnerable with each other that often, so it was hard to watch Jack be really sad over Tim leaving. I don't have too much to say about Lou's storyline except that her accident was way more intense than I thought it was going to be, and they also filmed it so well. Michelle did such a good job acting throughout the whole episode in showing her panic and eventually her confusion and desperation. Stetson protecting her was super cute, but I feel like we haven't seen them bond enough for us to believe that they have that type of bond. Oh well. It was a nice touch that throughout the episode they still had her hat laying in the pen where she fell. And we actually ended with a cliffhanger, which I can't remember the last time they did that without it being a mid-season finale type of thing. Caleb and Amy's storyline wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I actually liked Caleb's scenes with Tommy and his speech he gave him. Super glad we didn't really get Caleb making eyes at Amy. General notes. Some things that made me laugh were them all piling into the truck and how uncomfortable Nathan looked. Amy's sewing abilities, and Tim saying, "Don't threaten me with a good time by having to ride in the truck bed." Love seeing Amy ride Spartan. Also, this is the first episode this season without a Nathan Amy scene, but I was expecting that. Also, why does Peter never answer his phone in an emergency? Can't believe there's only one episode left. It is an interesting point you bring up about Nathan not being able to see him being part of that Heartland family dinner kind of picture because it makes sense. And I would imagine that after this episode, he could maybe imagine that a little bit better. And I do still have hope for Amy and Nathan after all this back and forth. But I don't know if we actually get to even see them kiss this season because we only have this one episode left. And there's so much that they need to kind of cover. So I don't know. Really interesting to see how they will come back together and who exactly will play part in that. Like someone suggested Caleb maybe. Lou, possibly Jack and Tim, I don't know, or maybe even Lindy. Then Sharon said, "I'm obviously in the minority in that I thought this was a great episode, setting up for the finale. Love seeing the three non-ranch gals being three ranch gals. The talk they had with Katie gave her a different perspective on her choices. She still needs to talk with her mom and not give her attitude for her own mistakes. Poor Nathan squeezed in between Jack and Tim and no seatbelt. His situation with his dad is hard and he's becoming competitive, which takes its toll on family. And as Nathan is the only family around, he's dealing with his dad and his own feelings on his own. We finally hear a snippet about Tim's family. He's right about how it's worse when they forget you. Jack's chest solution regarding the beef wars, it's a start that will be resolved in episode 10. When Jack and Tim speak to Lou, she will see this is an answer and she will apologize to Nathan in episode 10. Tim won't end up taking the job. I think he just wanted to hear that Jack will miss him. Tim slid down the order as Ty replaced him. Caleb talking to his frenemy possibly has Amy seeing him in a different way, but I think Caleb sees how Amy feels for Nathan, and he will tell Nathan this. We didn't see the bond between Lou and Stetson, obviously off screen, but it seems to be there. Lou's fall and subsequent injuries were more intense than usual for Heartland. It was so well done, and Michelle did a fantastic job. This accident will bring Lou and Amy back together. Lou will apologize to Amy and could possibly invite Nathan to the open house as a way of putting Amy and Nathan together. This episode is setting up for the arcs to be resolved in episode 10. In my opinion, what we saw in the season 18 trailer regarding episode 10 is the last scene of the season. So Amy can't escape stones, doesn't cook, and can't sew. Glad to see that she's not the perfect Amy. Well, not on 2 feet, anyway. I know Lou was disoriented, but the three names she called out were Grandpa, Amy, and Katie. I thought that was interesting that she called out for Jack first, not Tim or Peter. Just an observation. Most of the season, family members have been at the ranch, so where are their vehicles? They are always parked in front of the house but have rarely been there. I have to say, I expected to be more annoyed with Caleb this episode, but thankfully I wasn't. I mean, I still feel like he was kind of glued on to move the story along more seamlessly because I feel like we needed to really have someone with Amy that she can trust to tell what she's feeling because everyone else was sort of away. But I think we've heard this speech from Caleb before, I think in season 2, when Ty sort of gave up on Amy and Caleb was kind of like, well, if I was your guy, I would not give up on you this easily. So it is kind of like a callback. I don't know if it was done on purpose, but it definitely tracks out because Caleb has obviously said that before to Amy. But I'm glad that we know that Ashley is going to be in the next episode because the way Caleb was behaving in this episode, you know, helping Amy out, helping with Lou, acting as this like cleanup cowboy who's taking care of his family. I could see why it can make Caleb and Amy shippers excited. But you know me, I'm a Caleb and Amy ship hater. So I need to know that this won't be happening. Sorry about that. But I gotta say, other people made this comment earlier as well. Like, what is Amy not seeing? Like, all the things that Nathan has done for her. And what is something that she has done for Nathan? I mean, she has been a little bit protective, but at the same time, in the previous episode, we saw her at his ranch and they got along really well. And I think there was flirty energy in the air. So all of a sudden, she's like, I guess I'm not worth fighting for. And it's like, okay, so what would you want Nathan to do exactly? Because even if he did something, what would you then do in return? How would you respond to that? I understand that sometimes when you have high hopes for something and it doesn't end up happening, so you feel sorry for yourself. But I hope that someone actually asks her those questions like, have you thought about this? Or are you just more focused on yourself? Because it feels like Amy wouldn't really understand what the whole thing is, even though for me it felt like she understood that they do care for each other, but the timing is not right. So it's not really about her. And I don't know why she doesn't understand that in this episode. And last but not least, the story chemist said, maybe it's just me, but I felt it was a bland episode. Only the fishing trip and the non-cowgirls were worth watching story-wise. Does Jack teach Lisa to rope often? Because that was so out of the blue, and it didn't have them talk about anything private important. Jack wasn't do it to flirt for me. It was like, huh, why is it there when to me it was misplaced or done wrong? Anyway, Heartland doesn't know how to do traumatic injuries. Look at Jack's rodeo accident. It was quickly swept under the rug and was very disappointing. One more episode to go. Let's see what that brings. Keep up the great work. Your podcasts are great. Oh, thank you. So, let's look into the season 18 finale. Holy crap. I try not to have high hopes, but I still hope that I will not be disappointed. Not sure how that works, but somehow I still hope it does. So, the 10th episode, the season finale, is called Open House. It's streaming on CBC Gem tomorrow and airing on CBC TV next week. The synopsis says Heartland hosts an open house to bring the family and the community together, along with some old and new friends. As always, if you haven't seen the trailer for the next episode, it's in the description box of the YouTube version of this podcast episode. Can't wait to talk to you next week when we have seen the finale. So, until then, keep your noses clean and your powder dry, as they say. Bye.